Hello guys, and I'll be reviewing the iPhone 14 Pro and see if it is a good upgrade from the 13 Pro, so let's get into it. So guys, I've been using Apple's latest iPhone for the past few weeks as of this recording. I will be telling you guys about my past phones that I've had, why I upgraded, my experience with the phone, my verdict if you should upgrade to this iPhone 14 Pro. I'm not reviewing the Pro Max model, but they're basically the same features except the larger screen and the battery life. I typically wouldn't review iPhones, but I wanted to do a change for once and tell you why Apple's minimal year-to-year upgrades are actually okay for the iPhones. My first iPhone was an iPhone SE, and it had square edges, a home button, a beautiful aluminum finish. It was a nice phone at the time. I was using it, and I wasn't really into tech. In Christmas of 2019, I got the iPhone 11, which was a huge upgrade since it has a bigger display, with no home button, 2 cameras, curved edges for the design, except it didn't have the nice aluminum finish of my iPhone SE. When the iPhone 12 came out at the end of 2020, it had a radically different design, and moving from the curved edges to flat edges like my SE. I didn't want to go to the flat sides of iPhone since it didn't feel good to hold it without a case. I wanted to try the Android world. So I got the S21 Plus, which I traded in my iPhone 11 for, which was just a big mistake. Like on the specs, it looked pretty good on the website, but as I'll tell you further, it wasn't a good experience. Sorry, Android fanboys. But I really forgot why I liked the iPhone when I got my S21, since it didn't have all the Apple-only features such as iMessage, FaceTime, AirDrop, handoff, etc. There was so much customization in the S21 software, but I really never used those features. I didn't like why Samsung would overexpose or add too much color to their photos whenever you take pictures. Don't get me wrong that the cameras were bad. They did have good zoom. You know, I missed iMessage since most of my family members use iMessage, so it's kind of hard to tell all of your family to then switch. My dad, I told him to also download, but it's just another extra app because iMessage is built into every single iPhone, so that's why it's the dominant platform. That's why everyone is on it here in America. But in other countries, they use third-party apps. So even in China, they use an app called WeChat. I didn't find out that WhatsApp was an app until I went into this Android and had to use this third-party apps and third-party video calling apps like Skype or Google Duo. But yeah, WhatsApp is actually an app that I still use on my iPhone. So yeah, so it was actually a benefit of switching to Android. Anyways, I finally managed to get an iPhone 12, which I was so happy when I got it. When the 13s got released, most of my family wouldn't upgrade. For my 13th birthday, I got the iPhone 13 Pro. Then came 2022, and the iPhone 14 Pro launched in the Far Out event. So now let's move on to my experience on the iPhone 14 Pro. My experience with the phone has been overall good, and I haven't had any problems with it compared to the other people who had camera shaking in third-party apps or copy and pasting problems. Let me first tell you the pros of the phones. When Apple said that they were going to add the 48 megapixel camera to the iPhone 14 Pro models, I was in awe at the pictures that they showed at the event. I did, however, take some ProRAW photos, which is the only way to use the full 48 megapixel camera since Apple is using a new quad pixel sensor binning. I'm not really into this pixel stuff, but I do know my way around like how good quality of a camera it is. So they really didn't like the pictures that it did take with the 48 megapixel camera didn't really look that much different from a 12 megapixel camera, since the bigger, more megapixels does not equal better pictures, but it does equal more flexibility in photo editing apps, such as when I was zooming into the picture I took with the Pro RAW mode. It had amazing detail, and I could even see like such even minute details visibly. For me as a pro user, I do like that flexibility that they have added. On my old 13 Pro, if I was to zoom into a picture, it would become very blurry to see what I am looking at. Another new camera feature I liked was the new action mode, since it has such good stabilization and I'm recording any videos that it probably won't need to bring my own 5 gimbal. It has a lot of cropping, so it's kind of hard to like get the best you can't get 4K quality if you use action mode. On my 13 Pro last year, we had the new cinematic mode and macro mode, which were good, but cinematic mode was capped at 1080p at 30 frames per second, and macro mode wasn't very good at low light situations. The 14 Pro has updated cinematic mode, which can now support 4K at 30 frames per second and improved macro mode. I love any camera improvements that they make, since the quality of my videos, if you have noticed, are recorded on iPhone through any B-roll that I have, always on display, which is a great feature that they've added. I've been in many situations where I don't have an Apple Watch and I'm sitting at my desk editing or just studying, and I need to know the time without having to tap the display and see. So now when you click the power button, it puts it in always on display mode, and when you click it again, it won't be dimmed. You can also even see a wallpaper compared to most Android phones that you can only see the time, which is pretty useful, but it's not cool. Third Pro is Dynamic Island. I didn't like the name personally, and most of the internet doesn't really like it, but it was like the headlining feature, I would say, about the new 14 Pros. Personally, I think it should have been called Dynamic Widget, but I digress. It does, however, look like a certain island that I am going this December. Anyways, let's get back to the point. Dynamic Island is basically the new status bar for little notifications. When you play any music or any apps that support the Now Playing API, it will show up on the island. I do have a few nitpicks or negatives with the iPhone 14 Pro. When I took a few pictures on both phones before I did the trade-in, I realized that the 13 Pro is more neutral in color saturation compared to the iPhone 14 Pro, which has a bit too much color saturation processing that Apple is doing. I don't really like it, but it's nothing that photo editing can't fix. Another nitpick is that it's hard to turn off the display with the power button without having to go to the display settings and turn off the always on feature. I hope that Apple could allow some button mapping, like clicking 3 times on the power button to fully turn off the phone in a future software update, or add it as a filter in sleeping focus. The Dynamic Island isn't very practical to use, since I don't really listen to musics or podcasts, but I do watch a lot of YouTube videos, which does support it if picture-in-picture is turned off. I think the island is more of a gimmick than something that's a part of the phone right now, but I'm sure it will be more useful as more apps begin to support it. I also did play some games to test out the A16 Bionic chip, which funnily enough is actually only on the Pro models this year. And Apple's probably doing this because average consumers don't really care about performance when they're just web browsing on Pinterest or doing TikTok videos. I did play Oceanhorn 2, which is on Apple Arcade, and it runs the game really well at a steady 60 frames per second. But it does overheat when playing for a long time. I hope that Apple would add a vapor chamber cooling to its phones so it wouldn't overheat. I did watch some YouTube videos, which is primarily what I do on the phone, and the dynamic cuts into the videos a fair bit more than last year's Pro did. It's really on the videos that support like 21:9 aspect ratios. So, let me tell you why I think it's okay that Apple does minimal year-to-year upgrades to their iPhones. Apple is a company who makes products for the masses, and iPhone is where Apple gets revenue from. Average consumers don't upgrade every year, so when they do, upgrades, they usually will come from an old phone. When year-over-year upgrades add up, then that's when average consumers upgrade. I feel that the regular 14s are basically the same as the 13s, and they're not really done justice. The Pro models at least have some meaningful quality of life upgrades. Reviewers say that all iPhone 14 models are just the same as the 13 models, but they don't understand that this is just a smartphone trend with all phones, including foldables like Z Fold 4, Z Flip. If you've ever looked at the S lineup of Samsung, you can tell the phones are basically the same as the S21. These are my recommendations for if you should upgrade to the 14 Pro. And I'd say yes, because the smartphone is an essential part of your life, and you might not know it, and Apple has good trade-in value for iPhones. If the phone you have right now is working and you like it, then I would say to not upgrade. It's not a must-have. It's not like it, even though it does have the new satellite communication and car crash detection, those aren't really situations that you would always happen. I heard that the satellite communication thing that they're doing is actually going to come in November, so that's like next month. I did recently get the new AirPods Pro 2, which I will be making a video on later, so get subscribed if you want to get on to the latest notifications, and click that bell if you even want more notifications. Anyways guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and bye.